You're listening to Spark TV, where we bring you daily interviews with real women in business at all stages. I'm your host, Danielle Lewis, and I am so grateful to have you here. So good, Sarah. Welcome to Spark TV.
Oh, thank you, Danielle. It's so good to be here. Really, thank you for having me on the show.
Oh my God. No, I'm so excited because your book just arrived in the mail.
Zap.
Beyond Solo. This is so cool. I'm so excited to get into it.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much. That means so much to me. Thanks, Danielle.
How fun. Well, before we get into the whole book writing, let's
Mm.
talk about you. So, let's tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Well, okay, thank you. So my name's Sarah Howard, and I'm the founder and director of Writers Australia, which is a copywriting and content agency that I started in Sydney about 18 years ago, quite a long time ago. Um, and today we're the go-to copywriting and content agency for a lot of major corporates and not-for-profits around Australia and even around the world. We do a lot more strategic problem solving with our work, anything that involves words really, but a lot of brand narratives and tone of voice, content planning, thought leadership articles. So I love writing, that's what I do, but it's really about having a lot of empathy for the audience, and challenging our clients to actually focus on what matters most to their customers and the other people who are reading their marketing material. That's where we work.
I love that. It's really interesting. I just think words are so powerful. It doesn't matter what you do, right? Like, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, what you're selling, even if you're not in business, if you're just in,
Mm.
whatever, like, words are so powerful. And having somebody that can actually leverage words and use them to make an impact, like yourself, is so good because it's not all our fortes.
No, it's not. And look, for us, I think writing isn't just about getting words down on a page. I mean, let's be honest, there are ChatGPT can do that, right?
Mhm.
But it's about getting ideas into the minds of others and actually
Mhm.
making change happen or making ideas spark or getting people to do something or think differently about something. That's what I find really powerful about writing.
My God, I love that you just said getting ideas into other people's minds. That's actually such a beautiful way to even think about selling.
Mm,
Like, a lot of people hate selling, and I always try and reframe it, to building relationships and solving problems and blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, I absolutely love that idea of just, just planting a seed.
planting a seed,
Planting a seed.
absolutely. And if you do it really well, they think it's their idea. They don't even think they're being sold to. I mean, I always say, and this is true for writing and it's true for selling as well, you're solving problems, you're not selling.
Mm.
You're looking for what's actually at stake for that person. What are they worried about? What's keeping them awake at night? And if you can help them with that, you're in, right? It's as easy as that, and also as hard as that, because obviously you have to help them with it too.
Oh, that old chestnut. Oh
Yes.
my gosh, that's hilarious. No, so good. So how did you even get into this?
Yeah, it's actually an interesting story because my first career was not in writing. I was actually a retail
Yeah.
buyer, and I know you worked in fashion as well, Danielle.
Yes,
Uh,
I did.
yeah. So my first graduate job was a dream job. I worked for Topshop in London. I was
Oh
the
my
socks
god.
buyer. I know, it doesn't get
You and
more
the socks
glamorous.
buyer? This is
More
so
glamorous than
fun.
this. I know. I know. I used to choose the stripes, and it was in the heady days of the Spice Girls, and we had all sorts of crazy patterns
Wow.
going on the socks. Anyway, eventually I ended up in other parts of retail, like I worked in homewares buying. I moved to America, worked for Urban Outfitters, had a great career there all through my 20s, traveled around the world. But when I had babies, I realized that traveling around the world on a very, creative salary wasn't really going to
Mm.
cut it when it came to childcare and the reality of bringing up a family. And we settled in Sydney, and I needed a new job or something that would give me the flexibility to work around the kids. I wanted to obviously be able to chip away at our mortgage, so I had
Mm.
to actually earn some money. But I wanted a lot more freedom and flexibility, and I always loved writing. I have a marketing background,
Mhm.
and so a friend encouraged me to do some online courses and really upskill in that area. And I found
Yeah.
that this was my passion. Actually, this is what I really was here to do. And I was very lucky in that, actually, at that time we were living back in the UK. We flip flopped around a bit. And my tutor on the course I was doing over there runs a copywriting agency called Writers. And when I finished that course and did a little bit of freelance work for them, he said, we'd love to set up an office in Sydney. Do you want to help us do that? And so that's how Writers
Mm.
Australia began. It was a lot of serendipity,
That's
that
so
meeting. I
cool.
know. But it was really on me to build the business from scratch in Sydney and, use my network to grow. And I had the team in the UK who could read what I was writing and give me feedback and mentor me. But culturally, we're very different, and so they couldn't really
Mm.
do the actual writing. So very quickly, we got too busy. I still, had kids at childcare and school, and only so many hours in a day, and so I needed to bring some people on board to help share the load, and that's how the business started growing, just hiring one person at a time. So today we have about 7 or 8 people, one's on maternity leave, so
Wow.
I'll say 8, in a studio in Stanmore, and we also have a pool of freelancers that we work with for special projects as well. So we're not huge, but we're certainly, you know, a decent size and a mature business, and we work with really high caliber clients on really important work.
Wow. And that is huge. I mean, managing one person is hard enough, but 8 people? Like, seriously. So
Yeah.
you are doing well. You are doing very well. And
Yes.
I do love your, nod to serendipity, but I do think it's interesting, coming from a totally different career, deciding you needed to build a new career or work life around your family and the life that you want. It
Mm,
does take consideration and effort. And I love that you said, well, I have to acquire these new skills and I got advice and I got mentoring and I took the
mm.
phone call. So, you still have to do the work, even
You're
though the
absolutely right.
serendipity happens.
Yeah,
Mm,
it's not just luck. There's a lot of opportunity, and it's knowing that it's worth grabbing that opportunity and showing up and doing the work. Absolutely.
yeah. And
Mm.
so a team of 8, did that spark beyond solo?
Oh yes, it absolutely did. And look,
Oh,
I've
wow.
loved growing a business with a team. I think there's such joy in working together and collaborating and coming up with ideas that I never could have done on my own. And I
Mm,
love that. But along the way, there's always been times where I've gone, oh my God, this, it can be overwhelming, right? And
yeah.
as you know, managing others is a whole nother level of emotional responsibility and adds to your
Mm,
day as well. And so I've often thought, I wonder if there's another way to grow. I've just followed this traditional agency path as a creative agency. What are the other options? And so I ended up talking to about 20 different business founders and freelancers and consultants around the world to see what worked for them. And I discovered that there are all these other models for growth, particularly now with technology and the way that more of the way that people want to work to have variety and flexibility and autonomy. You've got
mm,
many more models that are a lot more hybrid in that they can kind of scale around different projects with a mix of contractors and in-house teams. I discovered these amazing models around collectives where you get exceptionally good people that form together around projects. And maybe they're more structured like cooperatives where you've got a shared profit pool. And so there's lots of different ways you can do that. And there were lots of really clever people who'd managed to find a way to turn services into products and created streams of evergreen income, which I just think is genius. And I wish I'd known about
mm.
that before. And so,
Tell me about it.
yeah. So
Oh,
I collated all of this wisdom from all these people into the book and made it super practical. Like I broke it down into different frameworks you can use to make decisions around how you grow with those models to make sure that you're protecting, as you said before, the things that matter most to you to build a business that
mm,
enables the life you want, rather than the other way around. I mean, I found quite often I'm working every waking hour for the business and I felt like the business wasn't working for me anymore. And
mhm.
those are the moments where I go, hang on a minute. It's my business. I'm in control. Let's just reset this. What should we be doing differently and taking it back to the purpose and what matters most to me, the people, things like that.
Yeah. And I do love that you said that because I feel like, so that happened to me as well. So I grew the Scrunch agency business, so not Spark, my other business, Scrunch,
Mm.
to a team of 20. And then I was like so miserable. And I was like, this sucks. I don't like being the manager of people. Like, that's not what I like to do. And then I was like, okay, well, you're the boss. So you're allowed to fix this. And yeah, and so now I have a completely outsourced model, totally flexible, completely outsourced team, and very niched. So rather than one
Mm.
full-time person that you've got to feed, that you've got to almost find work for, I hire people for really specific projects and tasks and bits and pieces, and I just love it. But, 10 years ago when I was just starting out in business, I thought you just hired people. Like, I've got
Yes.
to grow, I got to hire people. So I do love that you have written a whole book on finding a different solution and finding ways to grow that work for you, because I think there's a lot of people listening who think that hiring someone's the only way to go,
Mhm.
and they're worried about that, which, totally fair.
Absolutely.
Or they're in a position like we were where it's like, "Oh, I'm not loving this. What do I do?"
Yeah, exactly, exactly, and I think you're right. I think 20 people is a lot, and
Mm.
when I was in a period of rapid growth, I kept thinking, "Oh, maybe we need to hire more people," and then I actually thought, "How am I gonna manage that? How am I
Mm,
actually gonna be a good boss to that many people and actually
yeah.
develop, them and coach them and make sure that they're doing their best work?" That takes a lot of time, and it's a full job time job for most people. But I'm also the person who's, the strategist and and in charge of the financial management
Yes.
and the marketing and the
Oh my
client,
god.
client business development. So I don't have all that time to nurture a team. And so I think you do find your sweet spot of how many people is about right. And I think I'm probably at that point now.
Yeah, exactly. And it is interesting. Sometimes just hiring more people doesn't actually solve the problem.
It can add to the chaos and the
Mm,
overwhelm without really especially if you haven't solved any of the underlying challenges. You may, peek under the hood and suddenly go, actually the problem's not enough people, it's the processes or the systems. We
mm,
haven't got those right yet. Or we haven't worked out what the right profitability model is for our business. The nuts and bolts of what actually drives the revenue and drives the bottom line. We need to figure that out first. And then we can work out the best way to add more people, whether that's outsourced, contractors, freelancers, casual, full time, in house, whatever that might be.
I love that. So, I mean, in saying that, you do have a significant size team, so 8 people. If somebody else listening in also has a
Mm,
team, are there things that you have learnt along the way as you have hired and grown that have helped you onboard people, have helped you grow a team
mm,
and have it be cohesive, have it work for the business?
mm.
What are some of the key people lessons that you've learnt over the years?
There there have been so many, Danielle. I actually think the best thing we ever did as a team, which I didn't realize how valuable it would be at the time, was we really defined what our culture was as a business early on.
Mm,
And we wrote down some values that we all agreed on and what that meant to us. And we described the kind of business that we all wanted to work for. And we found a way to make that
mm,
work. And it meant things like, it wasn't just about, for me, culture's not, it's about the shared behaviors and the expectations and the experience you have at work. And
mm,
so you can talk about flexibility, and we do have true flexibility. We have people who work 9-day fortnights and school hours and all sorts of things like that. And, I'm working from my holiday house this week. So we have a lot of freedom to work from wherever suits us. Um, but it's also things like the values of being like we care for each other. So if someone's really struggling with their load, someone else will step in and share that
mm,
burden. Or if someone's having a difficult conversation, someone else will help them with that. It shows in the way that we step up and care for our clients as well, and that we care
mm,
about the quality of our work. And because we're so prescriptive in a way with knowing what our culture is and what we stand for as an organization, it made it incredibly easy for us to attract the right people. So when
yeah,
we put, those job descriptions out there and said, this is what we expect and this is what it's like to work with us, I am always overwhelmed by the quality of the candidates we get. Like people I think would probably, quite frankly, earn more money working for a big corporate,
mhm,
but they want to work in a company that respects their priorities outside of work, gets that they're a whole human being, and gives them everything they need to do their best work together as a team. It's very collaborative, and they love that. And I really, that's probably the thing I'm most proud of with the business. But it's not on me. That's the whole team creating that culture, and it just seems to flourish in its own way.
I love that. I think that there is real value in bringing the team through the
Mm,
process and on that journey. It's interesting. if you do it early enough with the sort of founding employees, I just think that
Yes.
that really it's almost like it becomes their baby as well to uphold and,
Yes.
we don't this is our culture and we don't let we don't want anyone ruining it, so they kind of
Yes.
become the warriors that protect it, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. They're the custodians of the culture, right? And that
Yes.
makes it easier when you're onboarding people because you know that that new person can sit down with anyone else in the team
Yeah.
and they'll very quickly learn, how we operate and what we do every day and how we communicate and all those things. Like the rhythm becomes second nature very quickly because everyone already gets it. And I think that makes my job a lot easier as well. And
I love that.
one thing I would
Mm.
say to anyone who's listening, even if they're a company of one or a consultant or a freelancer, is you can do this still. You can define the culture of the business that you want to work for because you
Yes.
are the most valuable employee in that business. It all depends on you. So make yourself happy. If you want to give yourself birthday leave, do it.
Oh
So,
my god. That's such a good idea. Oh my god, it's so funny that you say that because I have this, practice that I do, like, when I imagine my dream life, and it's so funny sometimes I'm like, I'd work 3 to 4 days a week, I'd walk every day, I'd do yoga every day, I'd read every day, and I was like, "You can do that now. Like, why don't you
yes.
do it now?" And I love that idea of, no, this is the culture, this is and, instilling some of those
Right.
things in your
Right.
own work practice, even if you are solo or small team.
Right. I mean, I
Mm,
think one of the reasons I first started bringing people on board into the team was I kind of went, oh, I really want to travel and have a holiday with my kids, but I don't want to take work with me, right? But I don't want to
yeah,
turn the cash flow tap off while I'm having a 3 week
yeah,
break. So I needed someone who could steer the ship and keep things humming along while I took a
mm,
proper holiday. And so unintentionally I set that culture and expectation in the team is you don't take work with you. And so
wow,
too often that
cool,
does happen in a small business, particularly for the founder, right? You're always checking emails. I'll just do this, I'll just do that. But I very much walk the talk on. Nope, I trust the team. I'm turning
mhm.
emails off. I'm going to focus on my family or wherever we are in the world. And that's been a really nice thing for me personally, obviously, because that's a business I want to work in, but it's good for the team too.
That is so good. Have there been any mistakes you've made
Oh,
when it comes to
yes.
people?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I think this was the funny thing when I interviewed so many people to write the book. And I asked them what the biggest mistakes they'd made along the way. All of them said, well, they're all to do with people, but I can't really talk about that on the record. So there.
Oh, yes.
I think we all learn those mistakes the hard way. And I think there's been a few times where, we've interviewed candidates for an in-house role and they've been super charismatic and feel like the right fit and the values align and everything seems hunky-dory. And then when they start, you kind of realize, oh, working in a fast-paced agency isn't right for them, right? They're not used
Mm,
to that, and they're not used
mm,
to clients completely changing their minds every 5 minutes or whatever else is going on in the
yes.
day, and it's not making them happy. And so as soon as you and it's not any reflection on them necessarily, it's just not the right fit in terms of, you know, the work that needs to be done. And in a small agency, everyone has to be able to step up and do what needs to be done. There's no real room to tread water, particularly when you're busy. And so pulling the pin early on is really important. And so I
Mm,
did realize we needed to have proper contracts with a proper probation period of, let's say, 3 months, so that both sides had time to kind of see if it worked for them. And there's been a few cases where we've sat down and said, and both sides have known it's really not working. And it's been a relief, I think, to just go, that's okay. Let's move
yeah.
on. So I think, my husband calls it hire slow, fire fast, which sounds a bit brutal, but it is. You need to really think about the people you're bringing into the business and spend a bit of time and not react to the fact that you're super busy and I need someone as quickly as possible because those decisions are rarely the right decisions. So hire slow. But if you then recognize that they're not the right people for the role, and it's not about them, it's about the role and the skills or the
Mm.
attributes that you need in the business, then it's time to make sure that they've got a place to move on.
Yeah, I find it really interesting. It's always the highest low one was always a mistake I made. I
Yes,
was always hiring from a place of desperation, always
exactly.
always knew in my gut that it was wrong, and every time I ignored my gut, I was like, "Oh, yes, here we are again."
That you are 100% right.
Oh,
It's every time there's been a little warning bell going off in my head, but it's been inconvenient
yes.
to pay attention to that instinct. I've always regretted not not heeding what my instinct is telling me. Absolutely.
Oh my god, I love it. So what was the process like writing a book for you?
I actually loved it, Danielle.
Oh, I'd
I
love
mean,
to
I'm
hear that.
yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it was easy. It was actually really hard because I
Mm.
naively thought, I write all day, every day, and I love telling stories about businesses. So interviewing people about their businesses, that's all second nature to me. I naively thought writing a book would be like maybe writing 10 ebooks and stitching them together. But it's not.
Ah,
It's
yeah,
not.
cool. Mhm. I see how you would have
55,
thought that.
yeah,
Yep.
55,000 words needs a pretty strong narrative arc to carry it through. And yeah, so the best thing I did was at the very beginning, I knew I'd need someone to keep me accountable to the commitment I'd made to myself to write the book. And so
Yep.
I engaged a book mentor or author advocate and book mentor, Anna Featherstone, who is really prolific in the publishing industry. And she just basically coaches writers to get through this process of writing a book.
Wow.
So she was the one that would nudge me, how are you going? And she was my early reader, and she could help me structure the book and make sure that it would flow properly as a book rather than as 10 ebooks stitched together. So so thanks, Anna, for that. No, it was really good having that. And I think that's the thing is writing a book, you often think it's a very solitary thing. But just as I've found running a writer's agency is great when you've got a team around you, it's been the same writing a book. I've needed Anna to kind of coax me along the way. I've needed the publisher's help. I've needed the book designer. I've needed people to help with the marketing. It's a really collaborative
Mhm.
effort, and I've actually really enjoyed that. And it's the thing that I think keeps me going because otherwise that inner critic would talk you down every minute, right?
Yes.
Um, but the other thing I found with the process of writing a book, which really helped me if anyone's listening and thinks, oh my God, I'd love to write a book, but I don't have time. I didn't have time either. Like I'm running a business that's very busy all the time. So what I did was I got the Atomic Habits app, which you can get on your phone. It's free.
Oh,
You know, the James
cool.
Clear Atomic
Yeah,
Habits is
I
really good.
didn't know
Yeah.
you had an app.
Yeah,
Cool.
and so you can set it to give you a nudge for one habit that you want to form, and it will nudge you at whatever time you choose. So I had it nudging me at 8 o'clock every morning to sit down and write 2 paragraphs. That was it. If I could just write
Wow.
2 paragraphs every day, I could keep the momentum going. Weekdays, weekends. And so I just chipped away at it. And there were some days where I could spend longer than that, and that was great. But I just knew that if I could get 2 paragraphs done before I started my day job, right,
Yep.
running the business, I wouldn't lose track of where I was, and I'd keep the flow going because otherwise you lose the
Mm.
thread. And so that really helped me because for a long time I was like, oh, I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have a 2 hour block, let alone a day to sit down and think about
Mm.
this book, but I could chip away at it.
Oh, that is so good. You've just inspired me because I literally this morning on my to-do list, I wrote down the sentence, break down things into bite size
There
because
you go.
I've just had these big things on my list that I really want to ship and I just can't find the day or the hours
Yes.
or the things. And I just
Yes.
love that idea of, the two paragraphs, the one,
That's right.
what's one thing we can do to push it forward and build that
It's I mean,
momentum.
and you can use that in any part of your business. I do that with marketing as well because, I mean,
Mm.
God, you can write down on your to-do list, I need to do some social media, and it's like, where do you start, right? But
And that you
yeah,
can spend all bloody day on as
right, you
well.
can absolutely. So, what's the one thing I can do today? I can write one LinkedIn post, or I can send one
Mm,
follow-up email, or invite one person, on the podcast, or whatever it might be,
yeah,
and it's those little micro steps that get you that little bit closer to where you want to be.
yeah. Oh,
Mm.
I love that. So, let me ask you a question. Did you write the book for a reason? Was it to, drive marketing for the business? Was it just
Hmm.
something that you wanted to do? Like, was there a
Mm.
purpose behind it?
That's a really good question. No one's asked me that. Look, I've always wanted to write a book. Like ever since I was a little girl, I remember
Yeah.
reading my first book to myself and just thinking, "Oh, I'd like to write a book one day." So
Yeah.
it was always one of those dreams in my head. And I played around with fiction, and fiction's actually really hard, but I will get there in the end. But I knew that I could write a business book, so I decided to start there. The other reason I wrote this book particularly was I was at an event, a conference a year and a half ago called the Content Bite Summit in Sydney. And I was with all these amazing
Mm.
freelance writers. It was a beautiful event, great community. And so many of them came up to me in the coffee queues when they realized I ran an agency because they were really interested to know how I grew. Like, how did I know when was the right time to grow? Who was the first person I hired? How did I know I had enough money to keep it going, or enough business to keep them
Mm.
busy? And I just and it was around that time that I was thinking, oh, I could write a book now. I actually have more time now that my kids have grown up and, gone off to uni. Like I actually have a bit more time in my day. And I thought, oh, this could be the book. And so that's why I then
Wow.
called Anna and said, could you help me with this? I think I've got an idea, but I don't know what the next step is. And so getting her to help me with that next step was the crucial bit. But yes, it was very much inspired by those conversations. So I really wrote it for all the freelancers and all the consultants I know in my network who I just thought, I think there's some useful things that might help you here. And that's really what it is about.
I love that. I feel like, the dream of writing a book, the dream of being an author is probably on a few of our bucket
Yes.
lists, but it is that moment of inspiration, like figuring out what your story is or what story you want to tell or what experience you want to bring to the pages
Mm.
is sometimes just really difficult to nail down.
It is. Oh, and my first ideas were terrible, Danielle. Like, honestly, I'm so glad Anna kind of pulled them apart. It's a
Oh.
much better book because of her. So yeah, and I think having the community, I met so many great people there who were really enthusiastic about the book. So having that
Mm,
community to test with as well, test ideas and see what was useful, what landed, what didn't, was also really helpful. It's like any product in a way, right? You're experimenting, you're iterating. And so for me, writing a book was a bit like that. There was a whole community around it.
Oh, I love that. And I do love that you nod to Anna as well, because just the power of, I think sometimes we as business owners think we're supposed to know how to do everything. Like, doesn't
Mm.
matter, give us any part of the business, and apparently we're supposed to have it all figured out. So why would a book be any different? Like finding a coach, a mentor, someone who has walked the path is actually just genius for
Yeah.
your mental health and actually getting something out the door.
Absolutely, and it makes it a better product. You don't
Yeah.
know what you don't know, and I think it just and it also gives you more confidence because someone else believes in you enough to give you that time. I think there's a lot of benefits to it. Mm.
Amazing. Well, Sarah, you are absolutely incredible. I always love to wrap up these podcasts with one last piece of advice. So, reflecting on your time in business, what would be one piece of advice that you would give to another woman on her business journey?
Um, I think this might not be true for all women, but I would say stop apologizing. I think a lot of women in business want to please others. And, I'll reflect on my own journey and say that when I first started hiring people to join my tiny team of one or two or three, I was almost apologetic. It's like, please like me, please come and help me. I really need help. And I would bend over backwards to make things as easy as possible for them, which isn't really
Mm.
the best way to kind of empower people to feel like they can do their best work. You start to rescue them more than you trust them. So I think, stop apologizing. Stop apologizing about what you're worth, right? Charge what you're
Mm.
worth. Set your prices so that some people will say no. That's okay. And I think,
Yes.
and it's a bit like you can't expect everyone to like you, and you don't want to be everything to everyone because you won't have time. So just knowing, being true to yourself and knowing who you're for and what you're worth will go a long way. That's what I'd suggest.
Oh my gosh, you are absolutely incredible, Sarah. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey and your wisdom and your book, which we will link to as well. So many good nuggets of wisdom in there. So grateful for your time.
Thank you so much, Danielle. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, and I hope to hear your story one day soon as well.
Watch this space.
Absolutely. Thanks everyone for
Oh.
joining us.
That wraps another episode of Spark TV. Shout out to Spark TV sponsor IP Australia for their amazing support of the Spark podcast and women in business. And if no one tells you today, you've got this.